Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. We're talking about a new law in California aimed at protecting civil rights, but that has raised a little bit of debate. Joining me to tell us more about this is the Center Square's education reporter, Esther Wickham. Esther, tell us a little bit about this law and what it's meant to do.
Yeah, thanks, Aliana. So last month, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law Assembly Bill 715, which essentially kind of rounds a bunch of officials within the state to create a anti-discrimination law. And essentially, this law establishes a new California Office of Civil Rights within the Government Operations Agency. Mainly with the goal of helping schools across the state of California identify and address discriminatory practices. This has been a debate. Many schools across the state, especially in the past couple of months, when it comes to higher education as well as K through 12 education. And there's been a lot of debate over civil rights issues. Is it discrimination? Is it not discrimination? And the Trump administration has been taking, investigations and legal actions against various schools within the state of California. And Newsom has kind of said, we want to keep our students safe. We want to make sure that their environment is, free from discrimination and that these students can feel, happy and safe to go to school and not feel like if they, identify as someone or if they have a certain ethnicity or believe in a certain thing, they're not going to be, discriminated against. And, this new California civil law has gotten a lot of support in the public school system, saying that they hope to strengthen the protection for students that are even currently facing discrimination. But there has been some, kind of pushback from teachers and civil liberty organizations that have that question of, okay, well, implementing this new department, they want to, identify and restrict discriminatory practices. But, these teacher unions are kind of questioning how far is too far, and it could potentially, restrict classroom discussion.
Can you dig a little bit more into some of the specific complaints that these organizations had?
Yeah, so there were two main organizations that kind of really spoke out as opponents of this law. They were really trying to push back when it was just a bill, but now since Newsom has signed it into law, it's more of a question of, how are the teachers going to fare when they are in the classroom talking about, various subjects in school. And these two organizations, California Faculty Association's teacher organization, kind of talked about how they are wondering if this is going to restrict academic freedom. Is it, in a way going to police teachers when it comes to addressing sensitive issues or, social movements within the classroom if they're learning about history, even current events happening, and it will impact potentially their fear is that it will impact teachers and essentially censor them in the school to talk about, current events, timely things that are happening, how it, pertains to the students, how it's going to affect them. And one example that Teresa Montano, who is the tri-chair for the California Faculty Association's teacher organization, states is that, they want to discuss current events and current topics like the war in Palestine, the war in Gaza, what is happening there, what, both sides are saying. And their fear is this new anti-discrimination law is going to, in a way, misrepresent that or police that because it will be deemed under the guard of, anti-Semitism. Or if there are, Jewish students or Palestinian students on campus, they feel like they won't be able to talk about that or discuss that. And kind of on a broader level, the American Civil Liberties Union has also spoken out and opposed this new law, saying that, they fear that this will kind of disengage students and teachers in the classroom to talk about diverse perspectives and, in a sense, civil discourse. And, something they say, obviously, as a civil rights union, is that anti-Semitism, discrimination is something that should be addressed in school, and there should be, action taken against people that are acting out in discriminatory ways. But their belief is that this new law, previously AB 715, kind of goes beyond that level of not only protecting students from harassment or discrimination, but also it kind of illegitimizes the academic freedom that teachers are allowed to have in the classroom to talk about conversations when it comes to history, identity, human rights, all of those, all encompassing subjects. They're going to have to feel like they are going to have to kind of tiptoe around when talking about these things, because, they want to not discriminate, but also history is important to learn about. And there are some, great things that have happened in history, but there are also some bad things. And so that's kind of a worry for them, because ultimately the law that Newsom has signed essentially will kind of deploy these administrators and these educators to investigate what they deem as unlawful discrimination. And this is a whole host of things. They're looking at school activities. They're looking at, instructional materials that are endorsing certain bias or discrimination that is seen as, violent or a violation. And regardless of even if it's harming any students that are present, if it's just a subject or a topic that could be seen as discrimination, they will remove it from the school and from the classroom. And so these organizations that are opposing the law are kind of fearful of the vague language of the law and how broad it is, and what exactly it's going to entail, because it is kind of vague. Like, what does promote bias mean? What does discrimination mean when you're looking at school activities or curriculum within the education system?
Yeah, that's so often a problem when it comes to legislation is the language that's used in that legislation, and it raises that question of what that language means, and how it's going to be applied and how it's going to be enforced over time. Well, Esther, thank you for sharing this story with us. If you want to keep up with this story and more, you can follow it at thecentersquare.com.